She was sold to an Apache at 18, but became the love he never let go. Western love tales. At 18, she was strong, smart, and careful, yet life had a way of testing her patience. Her family struggled to make ends meet. Her father, once proud and steady, had fallen into debt after a harsh winter destroyed most of their crops. The townspeople whispered behind closed doors, judging them, saying that the Thompsons were unlucky and foolish. But Clara knew that it was not luck, but circumstance and the harshness of the land that had brought them to this point. One cold morning, Clara was helping her mother gather what little food they had left when a stranger appeared on the path leading to their small wooden home. His coat was worn but clean, and he had an air of confidence that made him seem almost untouchable. He introduced himself as Mr. Hanley, a businessman who claimed to help families with debts. Clara's father, desperate and anxious, listened closely as Hanley explained a solution. There was a group, he said, that would buy Clara and provide for her while they paid off the family debts. At first, Clara could not believe what she was hearing. The words seemed unreal. She looked at her father, searching for some sign of protection, but saw only worry and desperation in his eyes. "Father, no," she said, shaking her head. "I can work here. I can help. Please don't sell me to strangers." Her father's face was pale and he could not meet her eyes. "Clara, it's the only way. It's the only way to save the family." Fear and anger surged in Clara's chest, but there was nothing she could do. She was only 18, strong but powerless against the adults around her. That evening, she packed a small bundle of clothes and a few personal things she could not bear to leave behind, like the locket her mother had given her when she was 12. The wind howled outside, cold and unyielding, as if warning her of the journey ahead. Clara felt her stomach twist with dread, yet she kept her head high, refusing to cry in front of the people who had decided her fate. The next morning, a wagon arrived to take Clara away. She walked beside it, each step heavy with fear. She noticed the townspeople staring, whispering, but no one dared to intervene. Even the children she had played with seemed unsure, looking at her with pity and confusion. The ride was long and the roads were rough. Clara gripped the edges of the wagon tightly, imagining herself somewhere else, somewhere safe, but she knew that safe places no longer existed for her. The world had changed overnight, and she was being pulled along like a leaf in the wind. After several days, they arrived at a clearing near the edge of a vast desert. Clara had never seen land so wild, so untamed. The heat of the sun was harsh, and the wind carried dust that stung her eyes and made it hard to breathe. It was here that she first saw the group that was to take her, members of an Apache tribe, tall and strong, with eyes that seemed to look right through her. Clara's fear returned in full force. Everything she had been told about the Apache as a child, the stories of savagery and danger, raced through her mind. She wanted to run, but the wagon was far behind and there was no path back. The strangers looked at her carefully, measuring her strength, her reactions. Among them stood Tay, a young warrior, calm yet alert. His eyes were steady, not cruel but intense, as if he could understand her fear without a word being spoken. The first days with the tribe were the hardest Clara had ever faced. She did not understand their language, their customs, or their ways of life. Every movement, every word was foreign. She stumbled through small tasks, dropping water or spilling food, feeling the eyes of the tribe upon her, judging her. She felt the weight of isolation pressing down on her chest, a constant reminder that she belonged to a world she did not know, and that the people she once called neighbors now seemed distant and meaningless. Tay, however, watched her with quiet patience. He did not yell or scold. Instead, he followed her silently, correcting small mistakes and showing her how to perform tasks the Apache considered important. He explained how to light fires, how to gather water, and how to respect the land they lived on. Clara listened carefully, feeling both grateful and frustrated. She wanted to resist, to keep her independence, but she knew that survival meant learning from him, no matter how hard it was to accept. Clara's nights were the loneliest. She slept under the open sky, wrapped in a blanket that smelled unfamiliar. The stars stretched across the night in ways she had never seen, and the silence of the desert pressed in on her. Memories of home, her mother's laughter, the smell of bread baking in the oven, the sound of the wind through the trees near her house, filled her mind. She cried quietly sometimes, wishing that she could return to the safety she had lost. But each morning, she forced herself to rise, to face the tribe and learn what was needed to live in this harsh new world. As weeks passed, Clara began to notice the small acts of kindness Tay showed her. He would leave her extra food when he went hunting, make sure she was protected when they traveled through dangerous areas, and sometimes, without speaking, he would guide her hand when she struggled with a new skill. Clara started to feel a strange sense of security, though it was mixed with fear and uncertainty. She could not yet call it trust, but it was a start. The tribe's way of life was harsh but fascinating. Clara learned to observe the patterns of the land, the movements of animals, and the rhythms of the day. She saw ceremonies and rituals that were full of beauty and meaning, even if she did not fully understand them. She began to realize that the people around her were not cruel, they were survivors, shaped by the land and their history. Tay was central to this understanding. His calm strength, his ability to read danger and protect his people, and the quiet respect he demanded from those around him impressed Clara. She began to see that he was not just a warrior, but a person with honor and principles, someone who could command loyalty without cruelty. Despite the small comforts, Clara's heart often ached for home. She missed the laughter of friends, the warmth of family, and the simple pleasures she had taken for granted. Yet, even in her sadness, she began to notice small moments of connection with Tay. A shared glance, a gesture of guidance, a silent warning before danger, all these began to form a thread of understanding between them. She could not yet call it friendship, and certainly not love, but it was a start. One day, while collecting water near a river, Clara slipped on the rocks and nearly fell into the current. Tay was there in an instant, catching her by the arm and steadying her. His hands were strong and sure, and for a moment Clara felt an unfamiliar sense of relief wash over her. "Be careful," he said softly, and though she could not understand the exact words, the tone carried meaning. She realized then that she was not completely alone in this strange, new world. Life went on like this for several months. Clara learned the rhythms of the tribe, the way of the land, and began to understand Tay's silent language of care and respect. She still longed for home, still felt the sting of fear and uncertainty, but she also began to notice a strange admiration for the man who had been her guide, protector, and silent observer. She could see the strength in him, the loyalty he demanded from his people, and the quiet patience he had with her. Though she did not yet know the path her life would take, Clara understood one thing clearly. She could not fight the current of her new life, but she could learn to swim in it. And as she stood one evening watching the sun set over the desert, with Tay nearby keeping watch, she felt, for the first time, a glimmer of hope that perhaps she could survive, and maybe even find something resembling happiness in this unexpected chapter of her life. The weeks. After Clara's first months with the tribe passed slowly but surely. Each day brought a new challenge, a new lesson, and a new chance for her to prove herself, not just to the people around her but to herself. The desert was unforgiving, and she quickly learned that survival meant paying attention to every small detail, the movement of the wind, the tracks of animals, and the signs of the changing weather. Clara discovered that even the smallest mistake could have serious consequences, yet she began to feel a quiet pride in the skills she was slowly learning. Tay remained close to her, always watching, sometimes guiding, sometimes simply observing. At first she had been afraid of him. She had seen his strong build, the way he moved with confidence, and the calm in his eyes that seemed to say he knew more about her than she knew about herself. But over time, that fear began to shift. Clara noticed the way he respected her space, never forcing her to do something she could not, always allowing her to make choices even in this new and foreign world. She realized that he was not cruel or harsh, as the stories she had heard as a child had claimed. He was simply a man of strength, discipline, and honor. Every day brought small victories for Clara. She learned to carry water from the river without spilling it, to start a fire without burning herself, and to move through the desert quietly so she would not startle animals or attract unwanted attention. The tribe began to notice her progress. Some of the women watched her with curiosity, some with amusement, and others with quiet approval. They had seen many outsiders, many young women brought into the tribe under similar circumstances, but Clara was different. She was determined, resilient, and willing to learn. Slowly, they began to include her in their daily activities. Tay, more than anyone else, noticed her determination. He began to speak to her more, though the language barrier remained a challenge. Still, they found ways to communicate. A gesture here, a look there, a hand guiding another hand. They began to understand each other in ways words could not fully capture. Tay's patience amazed Clara. He never mocked her mistakes, never showed anger when she failed, and never gave up on helping her understand. She realized that in this strange and unfamiliar world, he was her anchor. Clara also began to notice Tay's own strength and courage. During hunting trips, he moved through the desert with ease, reading the land as though it spoke to him. He could find water where none seemed to exist, track animals without leaving a trace, and sense danger before it arrived. She began to admire him, not just for his skill, but for the calm and confidence he carried with him. Even in moments of fear or tension, he remained steady, showing a quiet leadership that inspired respect from the others. Clara could see why the tribe trusted him, and she began to understand that his strength was not just physical, but also emotional and mental. Despite her growing admiration, Clara's heart still ached for home. She missed her family, the small comforts of her old life, and the familiar faces of the town she had left behind. At night she would lie awake under the stars, thinking of her mother's gentle voice, her father's tired smile, and the warmth of her childhood home. Sometimes tears would come unbidden, but she would wipe them away quickly, reminding herself that she had to survive. She had to adapt to this new life if she wanted any chance of living with dignity and strength. The tribe faced challenges as well. One morning, a group of scouts returned from a nearby valley with urgent news. A rival band of raiders had been spotted moving toward their territory. The chief called a meeting, and Clara watched as the tribe prepared for the possibility of conflict. Tay moved among them with quiet authority, checking weapons, giving instructions, and ensuring that everyone knew their roles. Clara felt a mixture of fear and awe. She had never seen such organization, such precision, and such calm determination in the face of danger. When the raiders finally appeared on the horizon, Clara's heart raced. She had never been so close to real danger before. She watched as Tay led the tribe with skill and courage, positioning them to protect their people and their home. His movements were precise, his decisions quick and thoughtful. He risked himself to ensure others were safe, never hesitating, never faltering. Clara felt a surge of respect and admiration that went beyond anything she had experienced before. In that moment, she realized that she was beginning to see him not just as a protector, but as someone she could trust with her life. After the conflict ended, with the raiders retreating and the tribe unharmed, Clara found herself beside Tay. He had a small wound on his arm, and she instinctively moved to help him. He allowed her to bandage it, and for a brief moment, their hands touched. Clara felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she could not name. Tay looked at her with his calm, steady eyes, and though he said nothing, she felt a connection between them that was deeper than words. As the days passed, Clara continued to grow more confident in her abilities and more comfortable in her surroundings. She learned the rhythms of the tribe, the customs and traditions, and the ways of the land. She began to participate in ceremonies, helping prepare food, assisting with small tasks, and learning the stories and songs of the people. The tribe began to accept her, not just as an outsider, but as someone who belonged, someone who had proven her loyalty and courage. Tay's presence remained a constant in her life. He did not need to speak much. His actions, his guidance, and his quiet watchfulness were enough. Clara began to understand the subtle ways he communicated his care for her. A protective glance when danger approached, a guiding hand when she faltered, a reassuring nod when she succeeded. She began to rely on him, not just for survival, but for a sense of stability and understanding in this new and unpredictable world. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and red, Clara and Tay sat together by the fire. They watched the flames dance and listened to the quiet sounds of the desert night. Clara realized that she was beginning to feel something she had never expected, a sense of belonging, a connection to this man who had once seemed so foreign and distant, and a growing admiration and respect that was slowly turning into something deeper. She did not yet know the shape of these feelings, but she could not deny their presence. Clara's life with the tribe was not easy. There were moments of fear, moments of doubt, and moments when she longed desperately for her old life. But there were also moments of beauty, of learning, and of quiet triumph. She began to see that life was not just about survival, but about understanding, adapting, and finding meaning even in the most unexpected places. Through it all, Tay remained by her side, patient, steady, and unyielding in his support. Clara began to realize that he was more than just a guide or protector. He was a man of principle, someone whose strength was matched by his compassion, someone who had earned her trust in a way that no one else ever had. She began to understand that survival alone was not enough. It was the relationships, the trust, and the quiet connections that gave life meaning. By the end of the second part of her journey, Clara had changed in ways she could not have imagined. She was no longer just a frightened girl taken from her home. She was learning to stand on her own in a world that was strange and challenging, and she was beginning to understand the depth of the man who had become her protector, guide, and silent companion. The fear that had once consumed her was still there at times, but it was tempered by growing confidence, understanding, and a glimmer of hope. Clara knew that the road ahead would not be easy. She knew that there would be more challenges, more moments of fear, and more tests of her courage and resilience. But she also knew that she was not alone. Tay was there, steady and unwavering, and slowly she was beginning to understand that in this new life, trust, loyalty, and quiet acts of care could create bonds stronger than fear, and that even in the harshest of worlds, there was room for connection, understanding, and perhaps even love. The desert sun rose hot and bright, casting long shadows over the camp. Clara had been living among the Apache for months now, and while she still missed her home, she had begun to feel a strange sense of belonging. Each day she learned something new, how to track animals, how to find safe water in the driest parts of the desert, how to respect the land and its rhythms. Life was still hard, but she had become stronger, more capable, and more confident than she had ever imagined. Tay continued to watch over her, patient and steady, guiding her without ever making her feel helpless. Clara noticed more and more about him, the careful way he moved through the desert, the respect he showed the elders and the children, the calm confidence he carried even in danger. He was a man of honor, and she admired him deeply, though she did not yet understand the full extent of her feelings. Each day she found herself watching him more closely, noticing the small gestures, the way his eyes softened when he spoke to a child, the the way he protected the tribe without hesitation. One afternoon, while helping gather herbs near a dry creek, Clara stumbled upon tracks she had never seen before. She called Tay over, showing him the markings. He studied them carefully, his face serious. "Riders," he said in his quiet voice. "They may come tonight." Clara's heart raced. She had seen conflict before, but the thought of danger so close to her made her stomach tighten. Tay instructed her to stay close and to remain calm. He moved with the confidence of someone who had faced danger many times before, but Clara could feel the tension in the air. That evening, the camp was alert. Fires were kept low, and every adult took a position to protect the tribe. Clara stayed close to Tay, her hands shaking slightly as she helped prepare supplies and watched the horizon. The tension was almost unbearable, but she noticed something in Tay that steadied her. He did not panic. He did not rush, and he always seemed aware of what was needed. She realized that his calm presence was a shield, not just for her, but for everyone in the tribe. When the riders finally appeared, it was chaos. Horses thundered across the desert, and the tribe sprang into action. Clara stayed close to Tay, helping where she could, carrying supplies and assisting the elders. She watched in awe as he moved, fast and precise, protecting those around him and ensuring that no one was harmed. At one point, a rider approached too close to where she stood, and Tay stepped in without hesitation, pushing her behind him and facing the danger himself. Clara's heart pounded, and she realized for the first time just how deeply she trusted him, not just for her safety, but in ways she could not fully explain. After the riders fled, the tribe gathered to assess the situation. No one had been seriously hurt, thanks in large part to Tay's quick thinking and bravery. Clara helped tend to minor injuries, feeling a mixture of relief and admiration. She could not stop thinking about how calm and strong Tay had been, even when danger was so close. That night, as she lay under the stars, she felt a warmth in her chest that was new and confusing. It was not just gratitude or relief. It was something more, something that made her pulse quicken whenever she thought of him. The following days were quieter, but Clara could feel a change within herself. She was no longer just a girl learning to survive. She was becoming a part of this community, a person who could contribute and make a difference. Tay continued to guide her, teaching her more advanced skills, how to hunt more effectively, how to predict weather changes, and how to understand the land in ways that were subtle but powerful. Each lesson brought her closer to him, not just as a teacher, but as someone who cared for her in ways she could not yet fully name. One afternoon, Tay asked her to accompany him on a longer journey to gather supplies from a distant part of the desert. Clara's heart raced with excitement and nervousness. This would be the first time she traveled so far with him alone, and she felt both anxious and curious. As they rode together, she noticed how he seemed to anticipate every obstacle, how he moved with the land instead of against it, and how his quiet confidence gave her a sense of security she had never felt before. During their journey, Clara began to understand Tay's world more deeply. He spoke to the land as if it were alive, reading signs in the sand, the wind, and the clouds. He told her stories of his people, their traditions, and their history. Clara listened with rapt attention, fascinated by the depth of his knowledge and the pride he took in his culture. She realized that she was not just learning survival skills. She was learning a way of life, a way of seeing and understanding the world that was profoundly different from anything she had known. As they camped one night under a sky full of stars, Clara found herself opening up to Tay in ways she had never done with anyone before. She spoke of her family, her home, and her fears. Tay listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. When she finished, he spoke softly, reassuring her with words she could partially understand and gestures that carried meaning. Clara felt a deep sense of comfort in his presence, a sense that she could trust him with her thoughts, her fears, and even her heart. Over time, Clara began to notice feelings she could not ignore. She admired Tay's strength, his courage, and his wisdom, but she also felt something more personal, something that made her heart race whenever he was near. She caught herself watching him as he moved through the desert, helping the tribe, or simply sitting quietly by the fire. She realized that she was beginning to care for him in a way that went beyond admiration or gratitude. The feeling was both exciting and terrifying because she did not know if he felt the same. One day, a serious challenge tested both of them. A severe storm swept across the desert, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, and dangerous flooding. Clara had never experienced such weather, and the howling wind and pounding rain frightened her. She clung to Tay, who guided her through the storm with calm efficiency. He showed her where to find shelter, how to stay safe, and how to protect herself from the rising water. Throughout the storm, he remained steady and composed, never showing fear, and his presence gave her courage she did not know she had. After the storm passed, Clara looked at Tay with new eyes. She realized that her feelings for him had grown deeper than she had imagined. She admired his bravery, respected his wisdom, and felt a warmth in her heart that was unmistakable. She also realized that he had been patient with her all this time, never forcing her, never rushing her, and always treating her with respect and care. The bond between them had grown stronger through danger, shared challenges, and the quiet moments of understanding. As the days went on, Clara and Tay continued to grow closer. They shared more journeys, more lessons, and more moments of quiet connection. Clara began to understand that love could grow slowly, through trust, respect, and shared experiences, even in a world that had once seemed so harsh and unwelcoming. She felt a growing sense of belonging, not just to the tribe, but to Tay himself, and she began to hope that he might feel the same. Clara's transformation did not go unnoticed by the tribe. The elders observed her growing skills, her courage, and her willingness to learn, and they began to treat her with quiet respect. The children looked up to her as someone who could guide and teach them in small ways, and even the warriors began to see her as part of the community. Clara realized that she was no longer just a stranger or an outsider. She was becoming one of them, someone who belonged. One evening, as the sun set and the desert glowed in shades of gold and red, Clara sat quietly with Tay. They shared a meal in silence, watching the fire flicker and the shadows move across the sand. Clara felt a deep sense of peace and contentment, a feeling she had never known before. She realized that she had come to care for Tay deeply, and she sensed, though he had not spoken it aloud, that he felt the same. The bond they shared had grown through trust, courage, and understanding, and it was a bond that could not easily be broken. By the end of this part of her journey, Clara had changed completely. She was no longer a frightened girl, unsure of herself and her place in the world. She was strong, capable, and growing in confidence every day. She had learned to trust Tay, to respect him, and to care for him in ways she could not yet fully explain. She had learned that even in the harshest and most unfamiliar of worlds, connection, trust, and understanding could create something beautiful, something that could survive even the greatest challenges. Clara knew that more challenges would come, more dangers and more tests of courage, but she also knew that she was not alone. Tay was by her side, steady, patient, and unwavering, and their growing bond gave her a sense of strength and hope that she had never felt before. For the first time in her life, she believed that even in the wild and unforgiving desert, a life of trust, respect, and even love was possible, and that together they could face whatever came next. The seasons changed slowly in the desert, each day bringing new challenges and new lessons for Clara. Over time, she had become skilled in the ways of the Apache, moving with confidence through the land and helping wherever she could. She no longer stumbled with simple tasks or felt lost in the unfamiliar world. Instead, she felt capable, strong, and more certain of herself than she ever had at home. Yet, with this growing confidence came a deeper awareness of Tay, the man who had been her guide, protector, and companion through all these months. Clara noticed herself thinking of him constantly. It was in the way he helped her without speaking, in the way he anticipated problems before they arose, and in the quiet strength he carried that made the tribe feel safe. She found that she looked for him in the mornings, worried when he was away hunting, and felt relief when he returned. At first, she did not name these feelings. She only knew that he had become the center of her thoughts, the anchor in her new life, and that she felt a warmth in her chest when he was near. Tay, too, seemed to feel a growing connection. Clara could see the way he watched her, the small gestures of care he offered, and the quiet way he allowed her to take the lead when she wanted to. He never rushed her or forced her to do anything she was uncomfortable with, and yet he was always there when she needed him. He shared stories of his youth, tales of bravery and loss, and spoke of his dreams for the tribe in ways that fascinated Clara. She realized that he was not only a strong warrior, but also a man of deep thought and feeling, and this realization made her admiration grow into something much more profound. One afternoon, while traveling to gather food in a distant canyon, Clara and Tay found themselves alone for a long stretch. The desert stretched endlessly around them, the wind whispering through the rocks and sand. Tay showed Clara how to identify edible plants, track animals, and find hidden water sources. She listened carefully, absorbing every word and gesture. The shared experience created a quiet intimacy between them. When Tay helped her cross a fast-moving stream, their hands touched briefly, and Clara felt a sudden warmth shoot through her body. She realized then that her feelings were no longer just admiration. They were turning into something deeper, something she could no longer ignore. Their journey continued, and as night fell, they set up a small camp under the stars. The desert sky was vast and full of light, and Clara found herself talking freely about her life before she had been taken. She spoke of her family, the town she had left behind, and the dreams she had once held. Tay listened quietly, his eyes steady on hers, and when he spoke, his words were gentle, reassuring, and full of understanding. For the first time, Clara felt truly seen by someone outside her family, someone who understood her not just as a girl in a new world, but as a person with thoughts, feelings, and dreams. Over the next several weeks, their bond deepened further. They spent long hours together, working side by side, learning from each other, and sharing moments of quiet conversation. Clara began to see the depth of Tay's loyalty, not only to the tribe but to her as well. He never left her alone in dangerous situations. He always ensured she was safe, and he seemed to anticipate her needs before she even spoke them. She realized that he valued her not as a possession or an obligation, but as a person he cared for deeply. The other members of the tribe began to notice the closeness between Clara and Tay. The elders watched quietly, approving of how she had adapted and learned, and how Tay treated her with respect and patience. The children looked to her as a role model, and even the other warriors seemed to recognize the bond forming between the two. Clara felt both pride and a little nervousness at the attention, knowing that her feelings were becoming harder to hide. She found herself longing for moments alone with Tay, cherishing the small gestures and silent exchanges that had grown between them. One day, the tribe faced a serious threat. A band of raiders had been spotted near their territory, and the tribe had to prepare for a potential attack. Clara watched as Tay took charge, giving instructions, checking weapons, and ensuring that every member of the tribe knew their role. She felt fear creeping in, but at the same time, she felt admiration and trust in Tay's leadership. He moved with calm precision, protecting the tribe while showing courage and strategy that impressed her deeply. Clara realized once again that she could rely on him completely, not just for guidance but for her safety and well-being. The conflict came sooner than expected. As raiders approached under the cover of night, Clara and Tay worked together to protect the tribe. Tay's skill and bravery shone, and Clara did her best to assist wherever she could. She helped with supplies, tended to minor injuries, and stayed close to Tay, feeling both fear and exhilaration. When one of the raiders came too close to where she stood, Tay stepped in immediately, his movements swift and protective. Clara felt a surge of gratitude and something more, something she could not yet fully name, but that made her heart beat faster whenever he was near. After the danger passed, the tribe celebrated quietly, grateful for their safety. Clara and Tay spent a moment alone, and for the first time there was a subtle shift between them. Words were not needed. Their shared experiences, mutual respect, and growing affection spoke more than language ever could. Clara felt a sense of peace and belonging she had never known, and Tay's steady presence gave her comfort and courage. In that moment, she realized that her feelings for him had grown into something powerful, something that might one day be called love. As weeks turned into months, Clara and Tay continued to grow closer. They shared laughter, challenges, and quiet moments of reflection. Clara began to understand that love was not always loud or dramatic. It could be quiet, steady, and built through trust, respect, and shared experiences. She found herself looking forward to the moments with Tay, cherishing the times when he guided her, shared stories, or simply sat beside her in silence. The connection between them had become unspoken but undeniable, a bond that strengthened with each passing day. One evening, after a long day of gathering food and preparing the tribe's camp, Clara and Tay sat together by the fire. The desert was calm, the sky painted with shades of orange and purple. Clara felt a warmth in her heart as she watched him work, his movements precise and purposeful, his eyes calm and focused. She realized that she had come to care for him deeply, and she sensed that he felt the same. Their bond had grown slowly but surely, through trust, courage, and shared experiences, and it was a bond that neither of them could ignore. Clara also began to understand the complexity of her feelings. She admired Tay's strength, respected his wisdom, and now felt a growing affection that made her chest tighten whenever he was near. She realized that love could grow in the most unexpected places, even where it began with fear and uncertainty. Tay's care, patience, and guidance had helped her survive, but they had also helped her open her heart in ways she had never thought possible. The tribe continued to thrive, and Clara became more involved in daily life. She learned to lead small tasks, teach the younger children, and participate fully in ceremonies and rituals. The elders and warriors respected her, not as an outsider, but as someone who had proven her courage, adaptability, and loyalty. Clara realized that she had found a home in a world she had once feared, and that Tay had been central to that transformation. Through all of this, Tay remained her constant. He never demanded her attention, never forced her to act in a certain way, but he was always there when she needed guidance, support, or comfort. Clara realized that his love and care were not loud or dramatic, but quiet, steady, and unwavering. She understood that he valued her as an equal, as a person he respected deeply, and that their bond was built on more than survival. It was built on trust, understanding, and shared humanity. By the end of this part of the story, Clara had fully embraced her new life. She was no longer a frightened girl, unsure of her place, but a strong young woman, capable, confident, and deeply connected to the tribe and to Tay. She had learned that even in the harshest and most unfamiliar worlds, love could grow slowly, through trust, patience, and shared experiences. And she knew with a quiet certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, the bond she shared with Tay would be her guiding light, her source of strength, and her hope for a future filled with trust, understanding, and perhaps even lasting love. The desert had changed since Clara first arrived. Where she had once felt fear, uncertainty, and isolation, there was now confidence, understanding, and a quiet sense of belonging. She had learned the rhythms of the land, the ways of the tribe, and the strength it took to survive in a world that demanded courage and adaptability. More importantly, she had grown close to Tay, the man who had guided her, protected her, and become an unspoken part of her heart. Clara's feelings for Tay had deepened over time. What had started as admiration and gratitude had grown into love, steady and quiet, yet powerful enough to fill her thoughts and shape her days. She watched him as he moved among the tribe, offering guidance, protection, and wisdom. He was strong but gentle, brave but patient, and Clara felt a warmth and trust in his presence that she could not ignore. She realized that he was no longer just her protector. He had become the center of her new life, the person she could rely on no matter what challenges came. Tay, too, seemed to feel the depth of their connection. Clara could see it in the way he observed her, in the subtle gestures that conveyed care, and in the calm reassurance he provided when danger or uncertainty arose. He had never spoken the words of love, but his actions had said more than words ever could. He allowed her to grow, to learn, to take responsibility, and he never treated her as less than equal. Clara understood then that his heart had been open to her all along, just as hers had been open to him. The tribe had grown to respect and accept Clara fully. The elders saw her courage and dedication, the warriors saw her resilience and skill, and the children saw her as a role model. She was no longer an outsider. She was part of their community. Every ceremony, every hunt, every shared meal reinforced her place among them. The sense of belonging she felt was powerful and comforting, and she knew that she had truly found a home. Tay had been central to that transformation, guiding her without forcing her, teaching her without judgment, and allowing her to find her place naturally. One day, the tribe faced a new challenge. A distant band of strangers had been spotted near their territory. Though they were not immediately threatening, the tribe prepared carefully. Clara worked alongside Tay, helping to organize supplies, prepare defenses, and support the elders. She moved with confidence now, knowing what was needed and understanding the land in ways that she had never imagined. Tay noticed her skill and strength, and for the first time, he allowed a small, proud smile to touch his face as he looked at her. Clara felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride, gratitude, and love, as she realized that she had truly become someone strong and capable in this new world. As the days passed, Clara and Tay spent more time together, not just in work but in quiet moments of connection. They walked together across the desert, sharing stories, observing the land, and enjoying the simple pleasure of each other's company. Clara felt a deep contentment, a sense that life had finally found its rhythm. She realized that love could be quiet, patient, and enduring, built not on grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but on trust, respect, and shared experience. Tay's presence had become a source of strength for her, and she knew that she was the same for him. One evening, under a sky filled with stars, Clara and Tay found themselves alone near a small, quiet stream. The desert around them was calm, and the only sound was the gentle flow of water and the soft rustle of wind through the rocks. Clara felt her heart beating faster as she looked at him, noticing the way his eyes reflected the starlight and the quiet strength that had always drawn her to him. She realized that this was the moment to acknowledge the feelings that had grown between them, the love that had been quietly building through months of shared experiences. Tay spoke first, his voice calm but full of meaning. He expressed his care for her, his respect for her courage, and the quiet bond they had developed. Clara listened, feeling a sense of relief and joy, realizing that he shared her feelings. Words were not needed to fully understand each other. The trust, admiration, and love they had built over time spoke more clearly than anything else could. They reached out, holding hands, and for the first time, allowed themselves to fully acknowledge the connection that had grown naturally between them. From that day forward, Clara and Tay were no longer just companions. They were partners in every sense. They worked together to support the tribe, sharing responsibilities and making decisions as equals. Clara's confidence grew even further, and Tay's respect for her deepened. Their bond became a source of inspiration for the tribe, showing that trust, respect, and care could create strong connections that endured even in the harshest conditions. Clara also maintained a quiet connection to her past. She thought of her family often and longed for them, yet she realized that her life had changed permanently. She was part of the Apache community now, and she had found a love that was steady, patient, and enduring. She hoped that one day her family would understand her choice and see the happiness she had found. The thought of their acceptance filled her with both hope and determination. Over time, Clara and Tay began to build a life together. They shared small joys, the laughter of children, the satisfaction of a successful hunt, the beauty of the desert at sunset. They celebrated traditions and ceremonies, participating fully and contributing their skills and care. Clara felt a sense of peace she had never known, a sense that she had truly found her place in the world. Tay was always by her side, steady, patient, and unwavering in his love and care. The bond between them continued to strengthen through daily life and shared challenges. When difficulties arose, they faced them together, trusting each other and supporting one another. Clara felt grateful for his guidance, his courage, and the quiet way he loved her. Tay admired her strength, her intelligence, and her willingness to embrace this new life fully. Together, they had built something lasting, a partnership based on mutual respect, trust, and deep affection. One day, when the desert was calm and the tribe was at rest, Clara reflected on how far she had come. She had been sold to strangers, taken from her home, and thrust into a world she had once feared. Yet, through patience, courage, and determination, she had not only survived but thrived. She had learned the ways of the Apache, found a home among them, and discovered a love that was quiet, strong, and enduring. Tay had been central to this transformation, guiding her, protecting her, and sharing his life and his heart with her. Clara knew that their journey was far from over. Life in the desert would always bring challenges, new obstacles, and unexpected moments. But she also knew that with Tay by her side, she could face anything. Their love was no longer unspoken or uncertain. It was a living, growing connection that brought strength, joy, and hope. She understood that love could flourish even in the most unexpected places, that it could be built slowly through trust, patience, and shared experiences, and that it could endure through every test that life might present. As the sun set over the desert, casting golden light across the rocks and sand, Clara and Tay stood together, watching the colors change in the sky. They held hands, feeling the quiet strength of their bond, and shared a smile that spoke of understanding, trust, and deep affection. Clara knew that she had found not just love, but a life of meaning, purpose, and belonging. She was no longer the frightened girl who had been sold at 18. She was a strong, capable woman, loved and respected, with a partner who would never let her go. The tribe continued to thrive. The children laughed and played, and the elders offered guidance and wisdom. Clara and Tay worked together, supporting the community, sharing responsibilities, and ensuring the safety and happiness of all. Their love became a source of inspiration, showing that even in the harshest conditions, trust, respect, and patience could create bonds that endured, that strengthened communities, and that brought joy and meaning to life. Years later, Clara and Tay would look back on their journey with gratitude. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and challenges that had tested them in every way. Yet through it all, they had found each other, built trust, and created a life of shared strength, love, and understanding. Clara knew that no matter what the future held, their bond would remain unbroken. The love that had grown quietly, steadily, and patiently would continue to guide them, inspire them, and sustain them for the rest of their lives. In the end, Clara realized that her story was not just one of survival, but of transformation. She had been taken from her home and thrust into a world she did not understand, yet through courage, determination, and the quiet support of Tay, she had grown into a woman of strength, resilience, and love. She had found a home, a family, and a partner who valued her, respected her, and loved her deeply. And in that love she found the greatest freedom of all, the freedom to be herself, to belong, and to live a life full of hope, trust, and joy.